you. Thank you for the introduction. Very happy and pleased to be here. Giorgio, it's great to see you again in the UAE. Tom, very happy to see you here in Dubai, and I'm extremely happy to be having this conversation today, not just as a sports TV presenter, but also as a former professional basketball player. And I think this falls perfectly well because the discussion today is about investing in sports. Giorgio, we know you today as the CEO of AC Milan. However, few know that your journey with AC Milan started as an investor, as you played a leading role in the acquisition of AC Milan back in 2018 by Elliott Management. Take us through the journey and the challenges that you faced from investor to CEO.
Yeah, thank you, Natalie, and thanks to the Ministry of Economy and Investopia for this event. You're right. So I started off my journey in 2017 as financing a transition of ownership from the Berlusconi family that had owned AC Milan for 30 years to a Chinese investor. And I was working at a different fund called Elliott Management at the time. A year into the investment, the club defaulted, and so we took over and we became, let's call it, accidental owners of the club. And so a 4-year journey started in which sort of we had to turn around the club, which was managed not very efficiently, bring it to profitability. And in the course of that investment, I was a board member. Unfortunately, my predecessor had cancer. He's fine, but I had to sort of take partly his role. And so when the business was sold to Redbird, Redbird saw me as being sort of around and asked me to join the CEO. So what I say is we did, as AC Milan, the turnaround phase first, and with Redbird, which is a specialist investor in sports media and entertainment, we're going through the growth phase, which is very exciting.
And we definitely can't wait for what's next. Tom, Barclays has always been like a pioneer in understanding the importance of investing in sports. I'd say since 2001, when you were the title sponsor of the Premier League and turned it into the powerhouse that it is today. You've always claimed that it sees the values of sponsorship in your business strategy. What was your strategy back then, and how did it evolve throughout the years?
Sure, thanks, Natalie, and thanks also for having me today. It's kind of you to credit us with turning the Premier League into a powerhouse. Not sure they'd entirely agree with that, but I'll take it. Yeah, we've had a long history in sponsorship. In particular, the Premier League's approaching 30 years now. I think for us it's really simple, certainly from a sports perspective, and this won't be a surprise to many of you, that it remains the most globally engaging category that there is, and there's no better sport to do that than football. So for us, it's really about how we use the power of sport, the passion of its fans, to reach our customers in a way that we can't ordinarily do. It drives forward our brand in ways that we don't see any other activity compete with that. The other important point for us is we enter into our partnerships both as a sponsor but also commercially. So we invest in these partnerships, but we also invest in them from a partnership perspective, and we have no partnerships today where we aren't the official banking partner on the books. What I mean by that is that we support our partners with their investments, with their FX, with their day-to-day banking, and that's really important for us because it brings the best of Barclays to those relationships and vice versa. So we're not just official banking partner by name as well. Your point on how our approach and strategy has evolved, I'd say over the last few years, the evolution has been certainly one into more socially impactful sponsorships, and that's no more true than what we're doing now in women's sport and in women's football. We made a record-breaking commitment to women's sport back in 2018, single biggest investment by a brand in the UK at the time. And the reason that we did that was to rebalance our portfolio between men's and women's, but we also saw a huge opportunity from a growth perspective. And so we took on title sponsorship of the Barclays Women's Super League, which we very much see as the North Star, the opportunity for young girls to see athletes on the field day in, day out is incredibly important. But at the same time, we noticed there was little to any investment in grassroots football in the UK. And we don't believe one can survive without the other. And so we split our investment between title sponsorship of the Super League, but also made and continue to make yearly multi-million-pound commitments to supporting the growth and development of grassroots footballs, in particular in schools in England, to ensure that young girls have equal access to boys. And we've seen huge increases in accessibility and young girls being able to access the game in the way that they never have been able to before.
Well, as a former athlete, it makes me very happy to see the division is heading there to finally invest in women's sports and grassroots. Talking about sponsorships, AC Milan is the first international club to open an office in Dubai. Why Dubai?
Yes, well, we're talking about investment in sports, and we talked about partnerships. Let me talk about for a second one of the biggest global investors in sports, which is Emirates. And look, Emirates has been on the front of our shirt this is the 15th year, and they've been a great partner for us. And having an office in Dubai is part of this partnership with them, and wanting to grow more with them and invest more with them. The second thing I'd say is Dubai, the UAE, the region are core for us, and one of the markets where we really think we can achieve growth. We want to grow our business here. We want to connect with our fans. We want to have events where we can engage in our fans. So to a certain extent, the question isn't necessarily why Dubai, but why not earlier in Dubai?
Well, definitely Dubai is so happy to have you here. Giorgio, sponsorship are maybe one way of investing in sports. However, we're seeing an enormous interest coming from private equities lately in acquiring clubs, leagues, as we witnessed a tremendous increase also in the valuation from some of the leagues. How do you explain the dynamic that's going on right now, and what is so attractive to institutional investors today in the sports industry?
Yeah, look, I think there are a number of factors that have contributed to this attractiveness of the sports market. One of them is size or scale. The sports market or industry was not perceived as an industry. It was more like a collection of toys, and really it's not that, and it has really become an industry with critical scale and opportunity for investors to deploy hundreds of millions or billions at a time. So attractive also considering the underlying growth characteristics. The other is governance, and there is an opportunity in sport, there has been recently, as an institutional investor, to come in and employ governance and businesses best practices, which in sports, in Europe at least, you haven't necessarily had. And as I said before, our shareholder, Redbird Capital, is a specialist in the sector, and so we have the fortune of having their expertise in this sense. Look, the other element I'll call liquidity need, or simply COVID. So the industry has gone through a tough time during COVID, and so certain businesses, whether they're leagues or clubs, if I look at football, have had a need for investment. And the other factor is what I'll call regulation. So in certain markets, if I look at the US, for example, institutional capital wasn't able to invest in clubs or franchises. And in Europe, if you look at investments in leagues, there have been some structuring to make sure that was possible. So I think these are kind of the factors, and personally, I think this is set to continue because, again, there's great demand for sport. Sports has a lot of engagement, live entertainment. It's great for partners, sponsors, advertisers, so I think it's going to keep going.
Tom, with everything we just heard, Barclays' strategy has always headed into sponsorship deals. Did you ever consider investing in a club or a league as shareholders?
We haven't. No, our focus has very much been on the benefits as a sponsor. That's not to say that we wouldn't or we couldn't in the future, but I think also based on our broader commercial relationship across the football industry. We bank near to 40 clubs. We bank two of the biggest leagues in the UK, and I think that's where our specialism is, and that's where we're best focused. And just picking up on a couple of things Giorgio said, I notice from a sponsor perspective, certainly at the moment, the interest in sport and in particular football is to a certain extent unprecedented, and we see that in the conversations that we're having with leagues and with clubs. It feels incredibly competitive for good reasons, and possibly post-COVID as well, but that's something that I haven't felt for a number of years, and I think is really encouraging for the future direction of travel.
Well, with all this interest coming from private equities and venture capitals, how's AC Milan? What's the strategy to capitalize on these investment trends?
So just to give you a bit of an overview, if we think about our business, our company, there's 3 core pillars. One is simple, one's the football. We're a football team. We need to score goals and win football games. We exist for that. 2 is financial sustainability. So we won't be scoring a lot of goals for a long time if we're not financially sustainable. And 3 is, look, we are not just a football club or a company. We're also a social and cultural institution. And we have the responsibility, the opportunity, and the obligation to, given all the attention that's on us, pass the right messages and, let's say, improve the world. Going to your question, so I'll go on pillar number 2. The first thing is, in terms of capitalizing in investment, institutional investment is, look, if we are a sustainable, financially sustainable, profitable business, that will drive the ability to attract capital. And so we've seen this in sort of our capital structure. The other thing I'd say is, looking forward and looking at growing the business, we have, let's call it IP, content, intellectual capital, and we look forward and work together with other financial capital providers to develop business models that put the 2 things together. And so these, and by the way, in the region as well. So this goes from academies to retail to experiential to even the medical side, where we can really use our core skill set and partner with other financial capital providers and grow our business and the business of our partners.
Tom, Michael Jordan recently, who bought the Charlotte Hornets for $275 million, recently sold it at $3 billion. But we're not all Michael Jordans. However, a lot of us as individual investors are interested today to invest in the sports industry. In what ways do you think individual investors can participate in the sports industry?
I think there's so many great examples out there at the moment, and not to labor the point, but certainly from a women's football perspective, I think that provides some really interesting opportunities at the moment. And the Michael Jordan example is a great one. But when you look at some of the growth in women's clubs and teams across the world, actually, you look at Angel City in the US now being valued at over $100 million, but started at a very small position. I think that provides some really interesting opportunities for investments, at a club level. Also, some very interesting opportunities out there around sort of to the fan and the consumer perspective. Fan-owned properties as well, I think, is really interesting as we're all starting to think about a very different sort of socially engaged audience than what we've been used to previously. I know that doesn't necessarily answer the question around investing, but it's a different type of, and something that I think we've got to be very aware of moving forward.
Well, I'm going to make use of your investing expertise, not as CEO of AC Milan, but if you as an individual today have a notable amount of money, where would you invest it in the sports industry?
So first of all, I'm disappointed you don't think I have a notable amount of money. But let's call it very notable. So look, I'm going to split it Europe versus the US, although I'm obviously more knowledgeable in Europe. And I'm going to split, clubs and leagues in Europe. And sort of so if I look at clubs, I think, look, the valuable content and hence the value financially, in my view, is in fundamentally two buckets, which is sort of the Premier League on one side and the mega clubs, or the Champions League if you want, on the other side. So if I had to invest in a club, I'd invest either in a Premier League club, given sort of the track record it has had in terms of growing its business, media rights, etc. And of course, then you have to be careful with relegation risk. So you have to pick right. Or in continental Europe, I would invest in one of the big clubs that effectively are not quite guaranteed, but are in the Champions League year in and year out. In terms of leagues, and you've seen a lot of investment in leagues recently. Again, if I look at football, you've seen it in France, you've seen it in Spain. There was an attempt in Italy that didn't go through. There's an ongoing attempt, whether it will happen or not, in Germany. But those, to me, are sort of investments where you cannot lose money. It's just about what IRR you have and in what frame of time. But these are what I'll call easy investments, in that they're a streaming of cash flows. You're not subject to performance risk. They are effectively businesses at really, really high cash flow margins. So those are, in my view, super safe investments. If I look at America, again, less expert, but the structure of the leagues in the States is such that as a club owner, you're almost guaranteed to make money. So salary caps and sort of the way the leagues are govern sharing of revenues make investment in clubs or franchises, in my view, a very good investment. Of course, this is all dependent on valuation, but overall, and I'll stop there. Unfortunately, I don't know much about Asia or South America.
I'm disappointed you didn't put much in women's sport, but I believe with everything going on with the NCAA college, the WNBA is a very good place to be, with all the emerging players coming in that will lift the league. Tom, looking forward, what are Barclays' strategies or vision to harness all these sports-related investment opportunities to achieve your goals?
I think for us, it's going to be about maintaining a balanced portfolio. I think our role in men's and women's sport is going to be increasingly important, as is the societal aspect of what we do. And I think the role of football in particular to transform societies across the world is going to be a really significant focus for us as well. But I think also increasingly shifting our approach to how we start to better look at the role of technology to support us with these partnerships, which we're not doing enough of at the moment. How do we reach audiences on a bigger scale? And how do we start to tap into more of what's going on from a technology perspective to transform the game, transform the fan experience, in many instances transforming the live experience and the stadiums where these games are being watched as well. I think that will be a really interesting area for us to watch and think about putting more of our investment moving forwards.
Well, we're reaching almost the end of our discussion today. Giorgio, I'm going to end with you. We've had the Casa Milan Dubai. What's next for AC Milan?
I view the biggest opportunities for international growth to be the Middle East, as I was saying, and America. And obviously in America we have the support of Redbird and their kind of know-how and network, including, by the way, the New York Yankees, which are shareholders in AC Milan. Look, the other big project for us is the new stadium project. So we're looking at, we're bringing forward a new stadium project it's called San Donato, which is a town just outside Milan. And it's a long-term project, and our current stadium is 70 years old, so it's a bit too old to give to our fans the right experience that they should have in 2024 as opposed to 1954.
Well, we definitely look forward to see the new stadium. Thank you so much, Tom Corbett, Group Head Sponsorship and Media at Barclays, and CEO of AC Milan, Giorgio Fulani. Thank you so much for being here and for being here with us.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.